Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Dr. Isma. We shall be doing the disorders of urine concentrating ability, and before that, there will be a brief summary of the urine concentrating mechanisms in the kidney. The slide shows changes in the osmolarity and volume of the tubular fluid as it passes through different parts of the nephron. As you can see that in the proximal tubule, about 65% of the filtered electrolytes are reabsorbed, and this portion is also highly permeable to water. So whenever solutes are reabsorbed, water also diffuses out through the tubular membrane by osmosis. As a result, the fluid remains isoosmotic with a plasma which is 300 milliosmoles per liter. When the tubular fluid reaches the descending loop of Henle, the water is reabsorbed, but there is no sodium chloride and urea reabsorption, so that the osmolarity of the tubular fluid at this time reaches that of the surrounding interstitial fluid, which is about 1200 milliosmoles per liter, especially when the blood concentration of the ADH is high. When dilute urine is being formed, then there is low levels of ADH concentration, and the medullary interstitial osmolarity is less than 1200 milliosmoles per liter. As a result, the descending tubular fluid osmolarity also becomes less concentrated. This is partly because of the fact that less urea is absorbed into the medullary interstitium from the collecting ducts when ADH levels are low, and the kidney is forming large volumes of dilute urine. In the thin ascending loop of Henle, which is essentially impermeable to water but absorbs sodium chloride, and because of high concentration of sodium chloride in the tubular fluid, because of removal of water from the descending limb, there is some passive diffusion of sodium chloride from the thin ascending limb into the medullary interstitium. So the tubular fluid becomes more dilute as the sodium chloride diffuses out of the tubule and water remains in the tubule. Some of the urea absorbed into the medullary interstitium from the collecting duct also diffuses into the ascending limb, thereby returning the urea to the tubular system and helping to prevent the washout from the renal medulla. This urea recycling is an additional mechanism which contributes to the hyperosmotic renal medulla. In the thick ascending loop of Henle, this portion is virtually impermeable to water, and additional reabsorption of sodium chloride and potassium occurs, which are actively transported from the tubule into the medullary interstitium. So the fluid in the thick ascending limb becomes very dilute, and the concentration falls to about 100 milliosmoles per liter. In the early distal tubule, again, there is no water reabsorbed because the characteristics are similar to the thick ascending loop, but sodium chloride is also reabsorbed here, so the tubular fluid concentration goes to as low as 50 milliosmoles per liter. Now, as the fluid enters into the late distal tubule and the cortical collecting tubules, the osmolarity of the fluid will depend on the level of ADH. With high levels of ADH, these tubules are highly permeable to water, and large amounts of water are reabsorbed. Urea, however, is not permeant in this part of the nephron. As a result, there is increased concentration of urea as water is reabsorbed. This allows most of the urea to be delivered to the distal tubules and the collecting tubule to pass into the inner medullary collecting ducts, from where eventually it will be reabsorbed or excreted in the urine. In the absence of ADH, however, little water is reabsorbed in the late distal tubule and cortical collecting tubule. As a result, osmolarity decreases even further because of continued active reabsorption of the ions from these segments. In the inner medullary collecting ducts, the concentration of the fluid depends on ADH and the surrounding medullary interstitial osmolarity, which has been established by the countercurrent mechanism. In the presence of large amounts of ADH, these ducts are highly permeable to water, and water diffuses from the tubule into the interstitial fluid until the osmotic equilibrium is reached, with the tubular fluid having about the same concentration of the renal medulla, which is 1200 to 1400 milliosmoles per liter. So a small volume of concentrated urine is produced when ADH levels are high. Because water reabsorption increases urea concentration in the tubular fluid, and because the inner medullary collecting ducts have specific urea transporters which greatly facilitate the urea diffusion, much of the highly concentrated urea in the ducts diffuses out of the tubular lumen into the medullary interstitium. This absorption of urea into the renal medulla contributes to high osmolarity of medullary interstitium and the high concentrating ability of the kidney. Some things that are very important are that in case of dehydration, along with low sodium chloride intake, there is decreased loss of urine, meaning the concentrated urine is formed, but in addition to that, low sodium chloride is excreted, and this is obtained, or this is done by the mechanism of the urea recirculation which occurs in the distal parts of the nephron. Also, additionally, large quantities of dilute urine can be excreted without increasing the excretion of sodium, and this can be accomplished by decreasing the ADH secretion, which reduces the water reabsorption in more distal tubular segments without significantly altering sodium reabsorption. This slide shows you the osmolarity of different portions of the tubular fluid. The disorders of the urine concentrating ability. Number one, there could be inappropriate ADH secretion, either there could be too much or too little. Number two, there could be impairment of the counter current mechanism, meaning that hyperosmotic renal medullary interstitium is required even in the presence of large amounts of ADH to excrete a concentrated urine. And number three, the inability of the distal tubule, the collecting tubule, and the collecting ducts to respond to ADH. So whenever there is failure to produce ADH, it is known as central diabetes insipidus, and whenever the kidneys do not respond to ADH, this is known as nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. The cause of central diabetes insipidus is failure to produce or release ADH from the posterior pituitary. It could be either because of head injury or infection, or it could be a congenital anomaly. In case of nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, the etiology is the failure of the kidneys to respond to normal or elevated levels of ADH, and this can be because of renal disease, meaning the damage to the medulla or the impairment of the function of the loop of Henle due to diuretics which inhibit electrolyte reabsorption by the loop of Henle, and this will compromise the urine concentrating ability. Or it could be failure of the distal tubule and the collecting ducts to respond to ADH due to lithium, which is used to treat manic depressive disorders, and also tetracyclines, which are an antibiotic. Because of no ADH secretion in case of central diabetes insipidus, there is large volume of dilute urine that is excreted, and this leads to dehydration, which also stimulates the thirst mechanism. Similarly, in case of nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, the response of the kidney is excretion of large volumes of dilute urine, but the cause, as we have already done, is that the kidneys are not responding to ADH, although it is present in the body. So this leads also to dehydration and stimulates the thirst mechanism. The treatment for central diabetes insipidus is administration of a synthetic analog of ADH, which is known as desmopressin. Either it is given in the form of injection or nasal spray or orally, and it selectively acts on the V2 receptors to increase the water permeability of the late distal tubule and the collecting tubules to water. In case of nephrogenic diabetes insipidus, the treatment is to correct the underlying disease and also the correction of hypernatremia resulting from the loss of excessive fluid in urine, which can be corrected by low sodium diet and thiazide diuretics that increase the renal sodium excretion in order to maintain the homeostasis. How are central and nephrogenic diabetes insipidus diagnosed? In case of central diabetes insipidus, the injection of desmopressin will immediately cause a decrease in the urine volume and increase in the urine osmolarity within about 2 hours, while there will be a lack of response in case of the nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. what is osmolar clearance? The total clearance of solutes from the blood can be expressed as osmolar clearance, and it is the amount of plasma which is completely cleared of solutes or osmolar substances per minute, and the amount of water which is required to excrete solutes per minute. In order to determine the osmolar clearance, the formula is the same as the clearance of any other substance, which is clearance is equal to urinary osmolarity multiplied by the urine volume divided by the plasma osmolarity. And when the urine is maximally concentrated, which is 1200 milliosmoles per liter, and the volume of urine is, or the urine flow rate is 1 milliliter per minute, and the plasma osmolarity is 300 milliosmoles per liter, then the osmolar clearance will be 4 milliliter per minute. Or you can also say that 4 milliliters of water will be required to completely clear the plasma of all the solutes per minute. Free water clearance. This is the amount of plasma completely cleared of free water per minute, and free water is the water without the solutes that is removed from the body, and this can be calculated by subtracting the urine flow rate from the osmolar clearance. It can be either positive or negative, meaning that if it is positive, if free water clearance is positive, it means that dilute urine is being excreted or excess of water is being lost in the urine. And if free water clearance is negative, it means excess of solutes are being lost in the urine. Another way of saying this is that if the urine osmolarity is greater than plasma osmolarity, the free water clearance is negative, meaning there is water conservation. The method of calculating the free water clearance is that the osmolar clearance is subtracted from the urinary flow rate. Now suppose the osmotic or osmolar clearance is 4 milliliter and the urine flow rate is 5 milliliter, then the free water clearance will be 1 milliliter, which is positive, and that means there is large amounts of dilute urine being excreted. If the urine flow rate is 1 milliliter, then the free water clearance will be negative, and meaning that water is being conserved and a concentrated urine is being formed, and normally it is negative, and even in dehydration it is negative. Obligatory urine volume is the minimum volume of urine that must be excreted to rid the body of waste products of metabolism and ions that are ingested. In a normal 70 kilogram human, 600 milliosmoles of solutes each day must be excreted. If the maximum urine concentrating ability is 1200 milliosmoles per liter, the minimum volume of urine that must be excreted is 600 divided by 1200, which is 0.5 liters per day. This is the reason why if sea water is drunk, it will lead to severe dehydration. The reason is that sodium chloride in the ocean averages about 3 to 3.5%, which has an osmolarity between 1000 to 1200 milliosmoles per liter. So drinking 1 liter of sea water with a concentration of 1200 milliosmoles per liter would provide a total of sodium chloride of 1200 milliosmoles. If the maximum urine concentrating ability is 1200, then the amount of urine needed to excrete this 1200 milliosmoles would be 1200 divided by 1200, which is 1 liter. Now, in addition to this 1200 which has been ingested, normally also 600 milliosmoles must be excreted from the body, and this is especially in case for urea. So when with the maximum concentrating ability of 1200 milliosmoles per liter, this is 0.5 liters of urine. So for every liter of sea water drunk, 1.5 liters of urine volume would be required to rid the body of 1200 milliosmoles of seawater and 600 milliosmoles of other solutes like urea. This is the reason why drinking seawater would eventually result in a net fluid loss of 0.5 liters for every liter of seawater drunk, and which explains why there is rapid dehydration in case of shipwreck victims who drink seawater.